Crypto investors await April 2nd for major tariff news, while stablecoin adoption grows yet again. We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Once again, Simon, this one will be well under 30. In my opinion, I've been pretty quiet out there once again.
Oh, I could talk for longer than 30 minutes if you want, mate. It has been quiet, and is this a good thing or a bad thing? We're looking like we're in more of an accumulation zone price-wise, so maybe some boring price action is possibly what we need to remove the fear of further downside, further capitulation, and maybe that's the basis of how we actually start making prices go back up again.
Yeah, certainly. Like when a price is bottoming out, when are we going back up? That's the most common questions I'm getting when talking with people in the space and Collective Shift members. A lot of this will happen and hinge on what happens this week. So looking forward to getting into that. Before then, we'll do a bit of a market update as normal. With it being the start of April, we've got Q1 behind us now, and yeah, it's pretty well. Depends how closely. For some people, I think this will come as a surprise. I think even ETH put in nearly its record. Its worst ever Q1 on record, falling by 45%, so 1% short of putting in a record there. And we had BTC down, I think, about 12% or so for the quarter. Again, if you're following week by week, not really surprising, but yeah, really just paints a picture there. And with up on our screen here, yes, we've got sort of some signs of bottoming out. You could argue in terms of it wasn't just down only, in recent days, which we have had, in recent times, but ultimately we still have, BTC down 5-6% for the week, ETH down, 12%, XRP down a bit more than that. So look, it's really just a holding pattern until April 2nd.
Yeah, and it really paints a picture of how much we zoom in too much when it comes to crypto prices, because it's interesting to see a 45% down for ETH in the first quarter is massive. And it feels hurtful, and we felt that pain. But you also go a little bit further back, and 6 months ago, Bitcoin was probably trading at $60,000 US. So it's kind of like whenever we zoom out a little bit more, we might feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe more so with Bitcoin than some of the other altcoins out there. But we tend to have this very much so narrow short-term bias of what's going on in price action. I think sometimes, reflecting on how far we've come year to date kind of thing is also very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's hard for crypto to really perform on a, over a weekly or even a monthly time frame if it's got certain things going against it. And one of those being, very high uncertainty in the macro landscape, particularly around tariffs. And then I guess related to that, you've also got risk assets like stocks, even tech stocks, even more so, selling off amid this uncertainty. So yeah, sometimes zooming out and just looking at the overall picture for crypto can definitely help. But on our screen there, that's just a reflection of last week. Again, a very volatile week in all markets, really, particularly in the stock market. We saw some more announcements from the Trump administration about tariffs on the auto sector. And we saw some inflation data come in, I think, slightly above expectations. But yeah, overall, just a lot of fear in the market. And a lot of people, I think even from a sensible point of view, just taking risk, taking some chips off the table and waiting for more information about what happens on April 2nd, which is a perfectly normal, rational thing to do in many people's, depending on their own risk profile and whatnot.
Yeah, and when it comes to these tariffs, we're definitely just playing to Trump's tune here, because last week during the podcast, we were talking about how Trump was, I guess, softening the talk about how bad the tariffs were going to be. And then just in the last couple of days, he's actually talked up how they're going to be worse than people think. He's going to put higher tariffs. And so it's like, well, we don't really know what the hell's going on. He's just trumpeting whatever he wants to the media. I mean, I'm sure he's got a very good plan behind it. I think he knows what he's doing. But that constant upheaval, markets don't like uncertainty. And so we're certainly getting a lot of uncertainty out of Trump right now with tariffs. And prices reflect that. When people are uncertain, prices are uncertain. When markets are uncertain, prices go down.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what a lot of people are wondering, all right, when does this end? Sure, we've got the date, but how how bad are things? Like, how long is Trump going to like continue sort of, I guess, saying all those things to the public and the treasurer as well? Like, how much pain are they willing to inflict on the economy and markets in the short term to sort of get their I guess their party objectives and their campaign promises and whatnot? And this is something we've talked about, and it's just interesting to see like signs of things going too far starting to creep in again. Like as we've said, like we still think Trump and his team are definitely like capable and like willing to still put their foot on the pedal in the short term, like and they're willing to see things bleed out a bit more. But we're starting to see some signs of, all right, like are they going to push these tariffs way too far and ultimately cause a really sharp, deep recession for the economy? So they're sort of trying to straddle between really lasting economic pain on one extreme, but then they're also trying to achieve their policy goals and ultimately already have achieved, a lot more fairer, I guess, tariff or trade outcomes in the US's opinion, already. So it's like, how much further do they go? That's something for all, I suppose, the political experts to answer there. But it's interesting to see this recession talk come back into the public.
Yeah, I think the thing we need to remember is that Trump has always got the Federal Reserve put in place in that whenever they feel they need to, they can start dropping interest rates, they can start a new version of whatever quantitative easing looks like, they can start spending more fiscal policy money so that the government can just start spending more money on infrastructure and things like that to move the economy. They know they can do this, and so they don't mind this short-term pain because they've got a fairly strong out whenever they kind of want to turn the markets around, and Trump knows that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this time next week. We'll have a lot more information, whether it's a bit chaotic, whether it's more certainty. Either way, it'll be nice to be out of this holding pattern. And we've got some more important macro data as well coming out in the next week and a half. But really, yeah, Liberation Day or the tariff announcements are a huge deal. So yeah, for anyone who's been out of the loop, just quickly, they've sort of flagged announcing, a broad range of tariffs. There hasn't been much detail about how harsh the US is going to go, in terms of, putting tariffs on every single country or even making them more intense of their existing tariffs that they have. So that's really the big unknown. And also, I suppose people are wondering, or the market and investors are wondering, is it just going to be a one and done sort of thing where they announce them and there's no room for negotiation, or will this be something that even continues to trickle out and dominate the headlines throughout April? And is it going to be something where the month of March very much reflects, is much the same in April, where people are just sort of waiting for more clarity? So no one really knows, except the people close to Trump and himself. But really, after April 2nd, we'll have a lot more answers. So it's hard to know. It's honestly, it's no one can really have any strong opinion, really. At least that's from my point of view. I honestly don't know what's going to happen.
I'll take a guess though.
I
reckon the markets are not going to like it because tariffs have just traditionally seen sell-offs to a degree in some way, shape, or form. And so I think there's going to be some tariffs. You don't pick up this big song and dance. This is a marketing ploy by Trump. Liberation Day, he's calling it a very fancy name. So he's going to introduce some tariffs, and that's going to see markets a bit fearful. So I feel we will have a bit of a downside, but I think it's going to be predominantly a nothing burger again, where not anything outrageously stupid has been there, and we'll kick the can down the road, because Liberation Day didn't exist like a month ago. This wasn't a thing, wasn't a date anyone was looking at. It got created as a date. There's going to be another thing that we're going to focus on. Oh, now it's this date. So I think we're going to have this continual grind of, I don't know, just Trump doing his marketing pitch, or he's appealing to his constituents, I guess. I think it's going to be nothing. I think the markets will sell off a little bit. I think we're going to find another date to focus on in the future, because that's just how Trump keeps the media circus going.
Yeah, it's that's certainly something I could see happening. I think what the market would like to see is something that is very final with someone like Trump, and just these sort of the whole idea of tariffs and the push and pull of it, it's just, unlikely to sort of end on April 2nd. But
It just doesn't end, does it? It does just, we're done now.
Yeah,
Here's the
exactly.
announcement. Everybody move on. It doesn't happen like that.
Exactly. Like there could, like, there is a world where something like Trump says something like, they're not looking to add any more tariffs. Like, this is final. Like, we're not looking to there won't be any more announcements coming up. Everything we've been talking about is happening now, and we're announcing it today. Look, that could be some certainty for the market, but yeah, we could talk about the possibilities for hours. But yeah, ultimately I'm looking for at least to just some more information.
Yeah, slightly more clarity. And what's the next thing we're looking at now?
Yeah, for sure. I think, all right, so moving on otherwise in crypto, yeah, it really has been still rather quiet, to be honest. I think projects not looking to really put out any announcements, or either they don't have any big announcements like up their sleeve. I think it's a bit of both. I think as a project in these uncertain times, most of your announcements are going to just fall on deaf ears. And also on the industry side of things, we just haven't really seen much news in the past week in particular. The only one that got a lot of headlines, particularly even in traditional, I guess, the traditional finance world, we saw GameStop, so the video game retailer, sort of now associated with being like a meme stock back in the days of COVID and all of that. They announced plans to raise 1.3 or up to 1.3 billion US dollars to buy Bitcoin. And again, this is something that actually caused their stock to sell off. Rather, it pumped sort of on the news, but I think once they announced their intention to raise, and it pumped. But then once they actually shared the details, that is that they're basically going to be selling, diluting all the shareholders. It sold off very quickly. So that was an interesting signal to me. It sort of, I think while it's great to see companies acquiring Bitcoin, I don't really think you need to make a big song and dance about it, because ultimately there won't be any other micro strategy or strategy. Like, you're not going to have that big of an impact where you can't really put your brand name and just copy what they're doing. Like, the effect has already been realized. So for someone like GameStop, I'm not surprised to see the stock price really crash after that news, because ultimately, from my understanding, the company hasn't really been performing that well anyway. So why would something like trying to do what strategy is doing really patch up those gaps?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because why should MicroStrategy, and I'm just not going to call it strategy. It's a terrible name change. Terrible name change.
It is.
So MicroStrategies, they're not a software company anymore. They're just not. They're a meme coin, basically. They're a meme coin related to crypto, because it's like taking a leveraged bet on Bitcoin in so many ways. So MicroStrategy is not a software company anymore. It is a Bitcoin leveraged company. And so why can't other businesses also follow that? I think probably some can. Should they all? Probably not, especially not if you're a profitable business. Maybe you should focus on your business more. But yeah, I think strategy is a unicorn, and nothing's ever going to get to their level of, I don't know, ownership. Like, they own 2% of all Bitcoin. So no one's going to chase that down. But I think some other businesses could do a smaller version of it. And I think that will happen, and maybe GameStop will get through this and find a way to actually make this work for them, and that makes their share price actually go up. I don't know exactly whether they should have done this. Should they just focus on their business? I don't know. I guess everybody, a director of these companies, have got a responsibility to look after their shareholders, and so they were thinking, hey, geez, it worked really well for MicroStrategy, maybe we should do this. But that's really an entire business model pivot.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm keen to see if there's any more of these announcements, and if they continue to be from companies that are sort of have been struggling, then look, ultimately it's more demand for Bitcoin. But I think if you see it from a bigger entity, like a company like Tesla, or even Amazon, or any of those, those are so big that they wouldn't even make a big song and dance about it. But if you saw in their results that they just put a small bit of their balance sheet into Bitcoin. I suppose Tesla already has theirs. That would, in many ways, boost investor confidence in something like Bitcoin a lot more than these sorts of announcements. But ultimately, hey, still positive in some respect to see it. Speaking of, yeah, I share your sentiment. I'm just going to call it MicroStrategy. They announced just overnight that they are back with their big purchases. They bought a bit over 22,000 Bitcoin for nearly $2 billion last week. Average price of around 87,000 US dollars. So as per normal, we saw a sell-off after they announced that, because the market realized it's really just MicroStrategy, just like buying up a lot of the Bitcoin here. There actually isn't that much marginal demand other than them. It's nice to have them, definitely propping up the price. But yeah, this was the first time they actually had a combination that I did just note down. They sort of, partially funded this nearly $2 billion worth of buying. It was almost split half and half between their normal sort of just, basically selling shares essentially of MSTR. And then they also did it through their vehicle that they announced recently as well. So they're actually now combining those two. This was the first time I saw that. But yeah, over 500, they're around 520,000 Bitcoin at the moment, and that'll keep climbing for MicroStrategy there. Over at Wyoming, this was a first that I'd seen. The state over there in the US, they've actually announced that their stablecoin that they did propose years ago is actually looking to go live in July. Just want to I'll get this up on my screen here. Is there any other sort of aspects of this that you took note of, Simon?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think we're getting to a point now where obviously stablecoins are the best use case of blockchain that we've seen. And so it makes sense for other people to try to capture that. I mean, Tether is well known to be one of the most profitable companies in the world right now, purely based off stablecoins, and they make all that money from the US treasuries that they own. So I think there's lots of people going, oh, what if we could just take a slice of that kind of market share? And I think that's what's going on here. So I think it's an interesting thing for a Wyoming state to do it. That's not the ones that I would have thought would have made it massive, but you've kind of just passed over there up above a little bit. There's also two other notable ones, which is Custodian Vantage Bank issuing one. So that one is more interest to me, because what do we have an issue with in crypto? With trust. And so we're combining banks, which, whether you like it or not, majority of the population have a high trust in their banks. Maybe it's just a Western world thing per se, but there's a high trust in those. And so they've got an issued stablecoin. There's going to be some trust involved in that. And then World Liberty Finance, Trump's organization, is also announcing that. But here's the challenge that I see when it comes to this, is that stablecoins is a very competitive market, and there's two huge people in the market that have the lion's share, which is Tether, USDT, and USDC, owned by Circle, which effectively is partly owned by Coinbase. And so why do they have the market share at the moment? Because people trade them. Binance uses USDT, and Coinbase uses USDC. So yes, okay, you could use stablecoins for peer-to-peer transactions and payment systems, which I know is done a lot on Tron with USDT. But I think most of the volume is actually through Binance and Coinbase as a stable pair trading pair. So that's kind of the primary use case. That's kind of the moat that USDT and USDC have around it. So it's kind of like, how can they impact that? And I think we're at the point where maybe you can't really dethrone them, but you can chip away at their market share. But also PayPal came up with it. PayPal's already a payments rail system, and I think is it PYUSD?
Yeah.
There hasn't taken a huge amount of volume out of the space, and I think it's because it's not paired as a trading pair, and that's where the real use of stablecoins primarily is. So I thought PayPal might have niched into peer-to-peer payments because they've already got a peer-to-peer payment system. It made sense, but it's obviously a harder market to crack. And Wyoming, unless you live in Wyoming, who cares? No one's going to want to use it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very targeted market, almost by definition. And yeah, just the first time I'd seen an actual government, or domestic government in this case, in an actual country as developed as the US, actually going ahead and launching this, and it'll be using public chains like via layer zero, as you can see on the screen there. So yeah, certainly it will be a very, very small, I guess, supply. Yeah, I agree there, and there's no way, this or any others will immediately, or even eventually, eat away at Circle or USDC and Tether's like dominance. But yeah, it's certainly like the hottest theme in crypto right now. Even on this next one here, this next story, we also had Fidelity coming out and teasing that they are looking to launch their own stablecoin. I think last week we talked about them they are preparing to launch basically a competitor to BlackRock's Biddle sort of tokenized money market fund that they launched a year or two ago. And now Fidelity, in addition to that, looking to launch their own stablecoin. So yeah, again, how much will it eat into the market share overall? I don't really think in many ways that matters too much. I think the big message, I guess, for everyday investors in crypto is that ultimately, it's great to see more adoption of these blockchains, slowly but surely, and the names there really are a big vote of confidence, I think, for just outside people, looking into crypto.
And it also comes back to what we've been talking about as far as US regulation is concerned. Like stablecoin regulation is going to be a huge thing. And so I don't know if or what these existing stablecoins will have to pivot to meet those regulations. I dare say that if you wanted to understand what the US regulation is going to look like, look at what USDC does. And so that's going to be the framework for what the regulation looks like. And so I think if they're copying what USDC does, then they're probably going to be okay. But this is huge for the US maintaining its world reserve currency. And I think that they're going to get this one, pretty well covered soon in regulation, stablecoin regulation. And then we might see even a bigger proliferation as everyone goes, okay, now we know what's okay. We'll all go and do it and see who wins.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see once that act goes through, which many are expecting. It could happen. Trump even said, hopefully before August. It's looking like that gets passed through Congress there. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about stablecoins a lot more in future episodes. We normally be doing the altcoin segment here, Simon, but this is a first in our weekly podcast here at Collective Shift. This is the first time I can ever remember having nothing in the altcoin space to talk about from the past week. So take that however you will for those
down
listening
bad.
and watching.
Prices down bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, no. If there was prices down bad, we'd have something to talk about. But it's prices sideways.
Exactly. Yeah, good. Yeah, good point. Just apathy, really. Just everyone is just staying put, really, to see what happens after these tariffs. But all these altcoins just don't have anything of substance to launch at the moment. Sure, there were heaps of altcoin updates, like for sure, if I squinted at them, and there were minor product releases and things like that. But there was wanting to respect everyone's time here, and there was nothing I thought that was worth your time covering in this segment. So hopefully next week there's at least one thing. But in terms of like things to look forward to, yeah, there's of course the inflation data coming out, unemployment data as well pretty soon. But yeah, like a broken record, obviously Liberation Day, all eyes on that. So not actually sure on the exact time of it. All I know is it's April 2nd sometime in the US. So yeah, it should be out. Maybe we'll see. This episode I think might be just going out before that. But yeah, next week we'll cover all the recap.
Next week we get to talk about tariffs again.
Exciting. Oh, gets me out of bed every morning. Oh, gee. All right, we'll finish things off with a bit of rapid fire. Underappreciated or overappreciated. I'm sticking on this theme of regulations and whatnot, which is again yet another sign of where we are in the market. But I'll get up on my screen here. I did note that, again, it was sort of a boring headline, but I actually think it is quite important. This is Bo Hines here, who's leading the Council of the Advisors for Digital Assets on Trump's team. And yeah, the FDIC sort of dropped their rule that came out in 2022 requiring banks to get pre-approval before engaging in crypto-related activities. So yet again, that's like one more barrier of entry, sort of eliminated for any banks looking to expand into, supporting or launching sort of crypto services such as custody and whatnot. So yeah, we've had a string of these, in the past, few weeks or so. So I would be quite surprised if we get to the end of this year and we still haven't really seen, any banks really, expanding into crypto. So that's a one to watch there. What have you got, Simon?
So my one is actually about Tornado Cash, and I actually missed this last week, which is, I guess, a sign of how under the radar this actually went. Where for those who don't know what Tornado Cash is a money mixer. Basically, it's a privacy tool to allow you to hide to a degree where your Ethereum has come from. So you can put it through the mixer and it can spit it out the other side, and it's kind of untraceable. The US had put sanctions on that, basically making it illegal to use. They've now lifted those sanctions, which I guess is just another layer of all these US laws, the SEC, all those kind of things attacking crypto. It's just another one being peeled back. So US citizens can now go use Tornado Cash, which I think is a huge thing. It's also letting developers, I think this is probably the bigger one, because I know a fair few privacy projects that actually stopped what they were doing around about the time these sanctions came into place. I just, good friend building one, and it's just too much of a risk to know what to do anymore. So now we're saying that, you basically code is okay. It's not creating, doing a crime. And so I think that's good for the space and the fact that, hey, it lets developers know that they can start thinking about these things again and start building and designing privacy tools again. So I think that's a good thing. But yeah, as the headline there says, though, like North Korea did use Tornado Cash to launder money. Bad people use tools as well. And that's, I think, what we're kind of getting to here. So that went under my radar. I missed that last week, but I think it's a good thing that we are not going to go after people who write code.
Yeah, great one. Great pickup to end it there. And yeah, we'll be back next week. More tariffs. Oh, amazing. But hopefully some other positive news for altcoins or anywhere else in the crypto space. But if you are looking for more insights and a recap of what will be the April 2nd sort of announcements, then definitely subscribe to our free weekly market insights that you get to your inbox every Friday. So you can subscribe to that at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.